things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for joining me, Jag Singh, for another instalment of Positive Minds. Our show, what we do is we bring on experts, we bring on inspirational characters who share their advice and information to make our lives better. Today I want to speak about a topic that's really close to my heart, and that's about writing a book. Now, many people have dreams and ambitions of writing a book, but sometimes they just don't get to do it, And at the age of 13, I couldn't read or write. So I needed to get all the help I could. I had to learn as much as I could because I was too busy being chased by the bullies and we didn't have time for education. Then when I came to age, I wanted to write my book. So I didn't know about nouns, verbs and everything. I had to learn all this. Now, I'm very glad to say that I have actually published my book now. And it's because I received help and support from an individual that I'd like to introduce you guys to. Okay, this guy's name is James Minter, and here he is. James, thank you for joining us today, James.
Good evening. Hello.
And James is the grandmaster sensei of writing, and this guy has given me so much support, and he made my dream come true. So I'm going to speak to James about his journey and see how you can take some information out of this and make that book happen. Okay, so James, tell me about your amazing author journey. How did it all start?
Well, to begin with, I never saw myself as an author. I had no aspiration. I hadn't really a book inside me, as everybody says. But what I did have was a story, a very short story that my mum used to tell me, one of many stories, when I was 4 years old. And I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it, but the story inspired me, fired my imagination. And a number of years ago now, 11 years ago, we went on holiday, of all things. And I'm not a big fan of sitting at the beach and dabbling your toes in the water. But so I took with me an A4 pad of paper and I started to write. And it was based around this story my mum told me. And it came back to me. It was a very simple story. And it grew. The gist of it is that the farmer that she used to tell me about, he had a tractor and a trailer, and on the back of his trailer, he would carry holes. And he was going up a steep hill, and the tractor stalled. The holes slipped off the back of the tractor, and the tractor fell back into the hole. Okay, not realistic, not based on any fact. It was just a little story that my mum used to tell me before she put me to bed. After 3 weeks of our holiday, I'd written 60,000 words based on this little story, and all longhand. And I, at that point, thought, well, when I get back home, I'm going to have to finish this as a book. And I started learning the craft from there.
Moment, roughly, how many books have you published, James, please?
Well, I'm on my 14th now.
Wow, brilliant, excellent.
Yeah, so that's close to, well, finish. The issue with books, of course, is that they're never really finished. You just have to say enough is enough, because the thing about perfection is you'll never reach it, so you don't really want to try. It's got to be good enough. And the thing about taste, everybody's taste is different. And so you write something and you get some amazingly obscure criticisms. So you're never going to please everybody all the time.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, James. Cheers. James, these pictures we're seeing right now, these are of your Billy series books.
Yeah.
What type of messages do you relay to young children in your Billy series of books?
Right, well, my first book about the whole farmer was just pure, straight out of sort of TV farce and inspired by a lot of TV programs. But over the last couple of years, we've gained 4 grandchildren, and they're growing up in a very different world from the world that I grew up in. And I am, as a parent or a grandparent, yeah, I want to be making sure I'm helping them, children, and any children, cope with this very, very different world, and a world that is moving so rapidly now,
Yeah.
with all these sort of technology innovations. And of course, nobody had any idea about COVID, and that had upset the apple cart totally. But at the end of the day, children's emotions are very important. Their physical health obviously is important, but their mental and emotional health is exceedingly important, because if you're not in a good position, then you really can't be the best that you can be. And my wife is an NLP practitioner and a personal coach, and she would talk about behaviors that she had to deal with. And so I got her to draw up a list of the behaviors she thought was most important to children. And we came up with things like honesty, with anti-bullying, if you like, with self-worth, with lying or not lying. And we came up initially with 8 of these, and I had to write stories around them. Now, the books are learnings, but the children hopefully don't know they're learning. The books are in 2 parts. There's the main book. Each book is typically 10,000 words with illustrations. But at the back of the book is a chapter aimed specifically at the adult or a parent or a teacher. And so, say, dealing with bullying, it will tell you what bullying is and how best to advise a child to approach bullying and how to seek help. Or if they're lying, why lying is not acceptable behaviour. So the learning is there for the teacher. It's there for the child to read, but the children, the age group for these books is sort of 6 to 9, 6 to 10. And it's difficult for them to understand some of the concepts behind it. That's why they need an adult.
James, that is excellent. That is excellent. It's great to know that you're sending out such a great message out there to the children. So, salute to that, James. Excellent. So there you go, guys. It's James Minter's Billy series. Okay, you've got to grab them. Got to grab them. All available out there. Just grab them. Okay, so James, next question. If someone listening out there right now wants to write a book, right? And this is the one I used to struggle with. If someone's out there wants to write a book and they just can't find the time, to get down to write this, because writing a book takes a lot of time, it's a big commitment, And that person out there listening is thinking, I really want to write my book and I just can't get myself to do it. What would your advice be to do?
Right. You're right. Writing books is a huge commitment, but books vary enormously in what they are. Obviously, the split between fiction and non-fiction is the most obvious divide. Fiction books are what people think of when you say, I want to be a writer. They want to write fiction. It's,
I mean, one of the main
well,
things is the motivation.
The motivation is, I mean, taking your own personal story, you had a very strong motivational desire to get your story out there because you wanted to stop bullying and hate behaviour happening. With the Billy books, I wanted to and still want to help children immensely. But with just writing a bit of fiction, a story about something that you made up, it's a different kettle of fish. And I would start personally by writing something that I had a connection with. So even if somebody's writing a fictional story, they're going to have to draw on their own life's experiences or
Yeah.
experiences they've heard from other people. Because to make up, and this is why I've struggled with things like dystopian books, which is totally imagination, and how you can imagine, well, it's difficult, some society on planet Mars, what it's going to be like. But writing a story like My Whole Opportunity, which is the book about the holes, I know it is a total farce, but all the characters in there actually are real people, and it's fun. In fact, writing should be fun, and writing
Yes.
is a
Yes.
good
Totally agree. Totally agree.
is a good motivation. For you and the sort of book that you wrote, it's cathartic, and not necessarily fun at all. So there are different drivers, different ways of doing this. But don't write
I
for
mean,
money.
yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, what I found, James, was that when I was writing, I had two young children, I had a job, I had a pet budgie, you had to feed the pets and stuff. It was tough to write the book, but what I found that worked for me was I found windows of opportunities. For example, when the kids are at school, if I had a day off, or I had that 1 hour there, because I read this amazing quote while I was writing. Because you say exactly the same thing, James. Don't you sometimes just feel like giving up? Feel right, I've had enough. I'm not getting there. I'm going to give up with this. And it's. I read a quote and it said, "You can move a mountain, but you've got to move it a rock at a time." And I think
Yeah,
that's what I find, and that's what I find with writing. That what I did was, even if it was just one paragraph, I knew I'd go to sleep knowing that I'd written that one paragraph that's going to add, eventually, create that mountain. So
yeah,
I know some people are really busy out there in their lives, and it's really hard to find the time. But it depends on the passion. How bad do you want to get that book? Do you? I mean, once you see that book on the shelves, once you see it on the internet, ain't that a sense of pride, James?
absolutely, absolutely. There are people like take Jeffrey Archer as an example. I'm sure you've probably heard of Jeffrey Archer. He's sold something like 5 million books,
Yeah.
but his day starts at 7 and doesn't finish until 7 in the evening. And he writes the whole time with breaks in between. He takes meal breaks and comfort breaks and this sort of thing. But he is at it for that length of time, 5 days a week. So
Excellent.
for a working person or a family person, I mean, Jeffrey Archer is well retired now and he's 80 something or other. So he doesn't really have many interruptions, if you like. So he can find the time. But for the person who's just a casual writer, a hobby writer, it's going to take you a long time. And in fact, the third book of the whole trilogy, the one I'm just about to finish, my 14th, I started in 2014 and it's taken me 6 years to get here. Only because I wrote other books in between and we moved back from France and life got in the way, grandchildren, all those sort of things. So I have plenty of empathy with people frustrated by it. Um, but I do go to and are a member of a writing group, and they meet fortnightly. And it's really just an opportunity to meet like minded people and chew the cud with them. You do get the occasional opportunity to read a few paragraphs and things like that. And of course, there are plenty of groups on the internet that help each other along, and those are quite useful. But yeah,
Saying that, James, I'm going to say something here, right? Ain't writing a lonely world? I mean, you're in this world. I found that I was on my own. Get me right, I enjoyed it because I'm thinking, I'm creating this kind of this thing I'm creating, and no one knows about it. And when you're writing, you have to live it, breathe it, you have to see it. And I thought I was in this lonely world, but once it came out, it was like, it was worth the quality, worth taking the time into it, and it's an achievement which I'm proud of. I'm sure you are too with all the books you've written.
yeah, it certainly is. My wife, fortunately, is very understanding, and she's busy in her own right, which is good. But in terms of being lonely, well, I've got, I don't know, 20 characters in my book, and they all talk to me. So
It does
it's
get
a
like that.
case.
I totally agree.
you know. Um, and they keep pressing me because when I'm not writing, when I haven't got pen to paper, they're sitting there drumming their fingers because they can't do anything until I put my pen to paper. So they're standing at a
Exactly.
kitchen sink or sitting in their car or whatever it is they were last doing. And so they do come along and push you.
Yeah.
And they talk to you as well. Because if you try
Yeah.
and do anything idiotic with them, so
Yeah.
they let
James,
you
because I
know.
remember when I was going through the teaching school of James Minter, one of the things you told me, and I remember very clearly, is raw material. You said to me that, Jag, you have to go and live like those skinheads, Steve. You have to be in your head. You have to act like them. What were the behaviours like? How did that 9-year-old kid, which was me, how did I feel being bullied? And those raw materials, I kept
Yeah,
taking little notes, little notes, little notes, and I added them in where I thought they fitted well. And you know what? It made a big difference.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, writing the first manuscript, as you found out, although it's difficult, it's only a very small part along the journey to getting the book completed and getting it published. And I don't know how many times I sent it back to you and told you to rewrite it, but it was a lot. Just as a
Yes,
by the
yes,
way, Jeffrey Archer
yes.
reckons you've got to do 14 edits. That's what he works
Yeah,
to, 14. So that's not total rewrites, but that's edits. So it's a lot of work.
yeah.
And of course, it's a hugely competitive world out there. Lots of people are writing, and the internet and access to self-publishing tools now, which are very widely available, means a lot of people are writing a lot of information, and there is a huge amount of stuff that is just not worthy reading. Um, but the buying public don't know that, and they have to sort through all of this to find yours. So that is difficult, even another layer of difficulty for somebody who wants to write and be successful at it. But I mean, if you want to have a professional writing, then you really need to start getting into writing short stories for magazines or for blogs or for
Yes,
internet
yes, yes, yes.
distribution, and start building a name for yourself and getting into the habit of writing. So rather than just sit in a room for 10 years, write a book by yourself, push it out there and think, why aren't people buying this? Because it just won't happen.
I mean, because what you said there is 100% right. Because we're not doing this show to dishearten anyone from writing. Okay, what
No,
we're
no, not
saying
at
is
all.
that it's a
It's the
tough
realism.
road. Okay? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And what James has said there, James, what you just said there, you're 100% right. Because when I started doing blogs for magazines. That's exactly where I started. I started doing blogs for magazines, started writing the small ones, started writing short stories. And I think it was even Stephen King that said that, if you do want to become a writer, and you just said the expert advice there, if you do want to become a writer, start with a short story, not with Gone with the Wind or something which is going to
very
many,
true.
many, many chapters. Yeah, but that you need to practice, you need to learn, and I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who said that you need to learn your craft. You have to spend
Yeah,
hours
yeah,
and hours
yeah,
and hours of learning your craft because if it means so much to you, you do want to create that book or want to create that body or whatever, then you will put the time in. Am I right, James?
yeah, yeah. Indeed, indeed. Um, and of course, oh gosh, there's an element of good luck with all these sort of things, and being in the right place at the right time. And what I've done in terms of getting my story out there is really just be generous with what you produce. And I've given a lot of stuff away, and that is afraid a necessary for a lot of authors just to get momentum, to get your book appreciated by others. And don't
Excellent,
rely on your
excellent.
family, I'm afraid.
Yes, yes, that's another one. Yeah, that's right. Yes, you're 100% right. You have to do it yourself. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah,
The other thing I was going to ask you, James, was if someone out there has started a book and then maybe they've written a few pages or half of the book or whatever, and life gets in the way. And I remember you saying that to me one day when I spoke to you, and you said,
yeah.
Jag, have you written? And I said, well, I've been busy with the kids. And they said, Jag, life gets in the way. And great words, life does get in the way, yeah? But we have to look for those windows of opportunities to write. Now, if this person listening right now has started a book and they just, haven't ever gone back to it, but they do constantly think about it, what would your advice be to them, James?
I think it's what you did, which was just write notes wherever you are. Always carry a little pad with you, and your story will be going around in your head, and you'll see things out of the car window or as you're walking on the path and think, oh, I can use that. And you have
Been
to
there.
write it down there and then, there and then. And if you don't write it down, you'll forget it. And the worst thing, of course, is we all do it at night, lying in bed, 2 in the morning. You'll dream up of some great plot lines and some really great stories. And you wake up in the morning and think, right, and
Yeah, I've
what's
been
there?
there. That's not
Nothing.
laughing, James. I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay, James. Listen,
So,
what
yeah.
projects and plans have you got for the future, James?
Well, I'm just finishing this 14th book, which is part of a trilogy. And because it's taken 6 years to write it, I'm actually going back to book 1 and book 2 and giving them another serious edit. I have developed as a writer along the way. My style has developed, my understanding of the English language has developed, which, by the way, is the most complicated language in the world. So anybody writing in English, you're into a hiding to nothing. And I'm going to spend a good 3 months probably re-editing them and then releasing the whole lot as a complete suite of trilogies. After that, I have, I would say, 12 titles. For each title, I write about a page of A4, a quick synopsis. And then when I think I need to write another book, I go back and choose the one that grabs my attention. And
Excellent, excellent. So, James, we're really short on time now. So, James, listen, thank you very much for that
yep.
information. It's been great having you on the show, James. Yeah, and I would like to say personally, anyone out there, personally, James helped me out write my book. He was a sensei, he was a grandmaster. So please, you can catch him on the internet, James Minter. I mean, he's the man. If you want to write a book, get in touch with him. And as you can tell, he's got a vast experience, and he's helped me along the way. And he's become a good friend. Okay, so guys, thank you for joining me today on Positive Minds, and thank you, James, for coming down today. And listen, guys, just do me a favour. Keep yourself inspired and motivated, okay? And keep pushing to those goals, and I'll see you next time. Why would you go, sir? Why would you give that?